Welcome to the channel. Here, we provide clear, actionable insights into the complex world of tax and accounting to help your business thrive.
Hey, if you're a business owner, you're going to want to listen up. The next few months are absolutely critical for OSHA compliance. Seriously, those annual reporting deadlines for your 2025 data, they are coming up fast. And trust me, missing them can be a costly headache. So we're going to break down exactly what you need to know and what you need to do right now.
Here's how we're going to tackle this. We've laid it all out in 5 simple sections. First, we'll hit the most urgent stuff, the dates. Then we'll figure out if these rules even apply to your business. We'll clear up the confusion around the different forms, explain exactly what posting versus submitting means, and finally, we'll cover who's exempt and where to go for official help. Sound good? Let's dive in.
Okay, first things first, let's talk about the calendar. These are the key dates in 2026 for reporting all your 2025 injury and illness data. You'll want to circle these because you really can't afford to miss them.
All right, on February 1st, the clock officially starts. That's the day you need to physically post your summary forms somewhere in the workplace for everyone to see. Next up is the big one, March 2nd. That is your absolute final deadline to get your data submitted to OSHA electronically. And then, on April 30th, you can finally take that summary down. It's got to stay up until then.
So, the million-dollar question. Do these rules actually apply to your business? This is where a lot of people get tripped up, because OSHA's rules are definitely not one-size-fits-all. Let's figure out your specific obligations.
Let's start with one simple question that'll get you on the right track. Just think about your entire company, all locations included. What was the highest number of employees you had on the payroll at any single moment during 2025?
Okay, so if that number for your whole company was 11 or more, you've already crossed the first major threshold. This means it's almost a sure thing that you're required to do the physical posting of the OSHA 300A summary form. That part is based on your total company size.
But here's where things get a little more nuanced, and this is a really important detail. For the posting requirement, OSHA looks at your total company size, but for the electronic filing, the rules change. They zoom in on the size of each individual establishment, which just means each of your physical locations. It's a crucial distinction, probably because OSHA wants to focus its data collection on those larger, potentially higher-risk work sites.
This table really lays it all out. And you'll notice pretty quickly, it's not just about size. Sure, if one of your locations has 250 or more employees, you're submitting that Form 300A data. But look at what happens for what OSHA calls high-risk industries. Think construction, manufacturing, places like that. The thresholds get much lower. A high-risk spot with just 20 employees has to submit. And if it has 100 or more, whoa! Then you have to send in the really detailed stuff from Forms 300 and 301. Now, I've been throwing around these form numbers, 300, 301, 300A. So let's take a quick second to demystify what they actually are so it's all crystal clear. It's actually really simple when you break it down. Think of Form 300A as the big picture summary. It's that one single page that gives the highlights for the whole year. That's what gets posted on the wall and what most businesses submit online. Forms 300 and 301, well, that's where all the nitty-gritty details live. The 300 is your running log of every single incident, and the 301 is the super specific deep dive report you fill out for each individual case.
Okay, quick recap. We've got the deadlines, we know who's likely covered, and we know what the forms are. Now let's get into the 2 main actions you might need to take: physically posting the form and electronically submitting your data.
When it comes to posting the form on the wall, it's just 3 easy steps. First, a company executive has to sign the Form 300A. That's the certification. Second, you have to post it in a really obvious spot. You know, like the break room bulletin board, somewhere people actually look. And finally, remember, it has to stay up for 3 full months, from February 1st all the way to April 30th.
And submitting your data online? Also a pretty simple 3-step process. You're going to head over to OSHA's official website, which is called the Injury Tracking Application, or ITA for short. Once you're there, you'll just enter the data that's required from your forms. And then, the most critical part. Make sure you hit that submit button no later than the March 2nd deadline.
All right, now for some potentially good news. It is so important to remember that not everyone has to do this. There are very specific exemptions, and if you're still sitting there feeling a little unsure about your own situation, don't worry. We'll show you exactly where to go to get a final definitive answer.
So you are exempt from the electronic submission part if you meet any of these conditions. First, if you're in an industry OSHA considers low hazard, think finance or most retail shops, you're likely off the hook. You're also exempt if none of your individual locations ever hit 20 employees or if your entire company never had more than 10 people. And finally, even if you have between 20 and 249 employees, you're still exempt as long as your industry isn't on that specific high-risk list from OSHA.
Now, after all of that, it's totally understandable if you're still feeling like your situation is a bit of a gray area. Maybe you're right on the edge of one of those employee counts, or you're not 100% sure about your industry classification. It happens.
So here is the absolute best piece of advice I can give you. Do not guess. Go straight to the source. OSHA has a fantastic online tool called the ITA coverage application. You just plug in your info and it will spit out a clear, definitive yes or no on whether you need to submit your data. It takes all the guesswork out of it.
And you know, it's worth remembering why all of this even matters. It's so easy to see this as just more bureaucratic paperwork. But really, the data that gets collected from all these forms helps OSHA and researchers see the big picture. They can identify trends and hazards in specific industries, and that knowledge ultimately leads to creating safer standards that prevent people from getting hurt or sick on the job.
So, as we wrap things up, I'll just leave you with this one final question to chew on. Getting this report filed on time, that's about compliance. It's checking a box. But what comes next? Instead of just filing this data away in a folder, how can you actually use it as a tool to spot patterns, to address risks, and to build a genuinely healthier and safer business? That, right there, is the real challenge.